According to United Nations, women make up only 22% of artificial intelligence globally. But UN says digital technology is opening up doors for global empowerment to women, girls, and other marginalized groups. At the time when the women in the tech space in the country are on a mission to implement policy intervention to help bridge the gender gap in digital technology. And to help us dissect this topic is Nangami Masakha, is the founder of Girl in Tech Foundation. Well, thank you so much for making time.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's dive direct into this issue of women in technology.
Yes.
Why are women so underrepresented in tech space?
I think the underrepresentation comes from the point of misinformation.
Right.
Because once you have the information, then it becomes very easy to take up spaces. And because there's not so much information that is going to women, especially that they can be tech experts, it becomes very difficult for them then to be represented in such spaces. Because I understand that the tech space is consumed of guys, mostly gentlemen, who are considered to be nerds, who are considered to be, of a particular way. So most girls will be like, no, thank you. I wouldn't want to be in such a space because, of course, the space is occupied by people who are considered to be a bit weird or awkward in society, and most girls want to appear as though, they're doing things that will brighten and bring up their essence, so to speak. Yes.
Well, this begs the question, how can women tap into the so-called boys club? How can they tap into that space?
That's a beautiful question. Now, let me just give you a little bit of background of why I'm even seated just across you. When I have a background in finance and banking, so that's what I did undergraduate. So moving forward, especially when we're getting into the fourth industrial revolution, I wanted to also have a piece of the cake in terms of tech, because tech is taking over the globe, and also wanted to understand tech, build tech businesses, artificial intelligence, data science, data analytics, robotics, and whatnot. So because I was intrigued by those things, I decided then to take up masters in data science. But in class, one thing I realized is that the class only had 2 ladies, and the rest of the class was just made up of gentlemen. So I asked myself, why is it that it's just only us, the 2 of us who are here? Of course, at some point I almost felt as though I was in an engineering class, because you know that in engineering classes, that's when you have, a very marginal, perhaps very small amount of number of women in the space. So as I was doing that, then of course I went on to do research to find out, are women then dominant, or are they taking up spaces in other tech environments? Because I'm doing data science, but the tech space is, the tech field is big, only to realize that especially in artificial intelligence, there are very, very, very few gentlemen, or even cybersecurity, most of them are men. So to that end, that's when I realized that this tech thing is something that, of course, then should be introduced to girls, and ladies should take up the spaces and come and join the gentlemen and join the boys club, as you say.
Well, for girls who have the expertise and, of course, they have education background, well, the big question that many are asking, is there space for girl, of course, in tech space? I understand, first of all, to solve this problem, first of all, you must, invest in some sort of technology, but Kenya is still lagging behind in terms of that. While even at the time that many are advocating for girl in tech, do you think we are at par in a place where we can comfortably say now we have, the spaces, the job available for our ladies?
Yes.
So because you must first tackle the problem before you advocate for changes.
Yes.
Do you think, in our own opinion, we have the job available for our girls?
Yes. The pie is too big for any of us to consume, because of course we're just getting into the technological revolution. So that the cake is still too big. At least for the West, for the people in the West, then they can say that they have exactly tapped into that market. But for us here in Africa, especially in Kenya, still at its infancy. So anybody can partake in this big pie and be frontiers. They can be pioneers of whatever it is that they want to people to consume in the tech space. So the pie is big. The only problem is the misinformation, because even as we're operating in the tech space, most of us are operating blindly, because we are a third world country. So we need to create solutions and problems that are for this market, for the third world nation. And anybody can do that, whether male or female. So the space is big enough for anybody to get into. The only problem then would be in terms of the facilities and the infrastructure that will allow anybody to partake in the tech space. And the girls, most of them then do not have the direct access into these spaces where they can tap in terms of infrastructure and facilities and get to position themselves so that they can partake in this big cake that is there for everyone to consume.
All right. What has changed over the time? Of course, I know the journey has been, one of its own fair share of challenges.
Yes.
Some will call it a roller coaster ride.
Yes.
But from your own assessment and judgment, of course, what has changed over the time?
In terms of ladies in tech or just tech as a
ladies
whole?
in tech, and of course the progression of journey from the time these changes came, the technology, and now up where we are today. When you look at the global statistics that was released by United Nations, 22% globally, that is the dimming statistics to start with. But now the journey has moved. UN says there is door for girls and women in tech and of course in marginalized groups to actually realize their potential. Here in Kenya, there is push and call, of course, globally for more women to take part in tech. Well, as a person who has been, even as a founder, you have been very instrumental in the involvement of girls in tech. Well, what will you say has been the journey so far, the progression from that time until now?
In my view, the journey has been, of course, the journey in itself has been a bit slow, just to get people on board, because tech, especially for ladies, is not something that is taken seriously. But just to be fair to the women that have gone before us, because they are impeccable women, number of women who are in the tech space. I forget her name, but the pioneer in terms of artificial intelligence, especially in the world, she comes from the United States, is a lady. She's in her perhaps 40s or 50s. I'm sorry about that, but perhaps the name will come to me, but it's a lady. So we have frontiers who have been in this industry trying to make sure that we make progression. Now, in terms of just the progress that you're making, the progress is beautiful. The progress is it's commendable, because now we're seeing more women getting into the space because of information. And because people like myself and other women, and of course, I stand on the shoulders of so many giants that have come before me. So those of us who have gone door to door, at least school to school, urging ladies to come and join the tech space, the progression has been, initially it was slow, even as I was joining in. I didn't understand. The person who encouraged me to get into the tech space was not a woman, it was a gentleman. And I asked myself, we are getting into a technological revolution, and I don't see people of my kind taking up spaces. But then again, having been in the ecosystem, I have come to realize that the progress is there, because as we move forward, of course, in terms of girls in tech, it means that I am trying to have this proliferation of people of my gender in the tech space. So as they're in the tech space, then it has to there be a mindset shift, and it has been there. So the progress has been slow previously, but we are making headway in the right direction. Yes.
Well, why is inclusion of women in tech so important at this stage?
Inclusion of women is important because, like any other field and any other industry, you need diversity. And as a woman, I bring my perspective is different when it comes to creating robots, when it comes to creating, applications, because of because can you imagine if we only had an industry that is run by men, then it means that their uptake in terms of information is going to be skewed, because they can only produce what they know. They cannot produce for a market that is unique to me as a lady and the things that I understand. So when I come into the market, I bring the diversity. And for any society to succeed, they say that diversity is diversity? Yes, spice of life. Yes, diversity is the spice of life. You need to have diversity. So once you have an opinion that is different from the norm, it becomes then easy to even create applications, to create technological advancement that then encompasses everybody else in society. And as we move forward, we have women, we have men, and then perhaps we're going to have now people of who are able differently, because then they can also bring their perspective to the market and to the industry. So girls being in tech, it's a different perspective, and it's one that is important, and it's required to be there.
All right. When you look at all these particular conversations, this is a conversation that we have had it before, and we'll continue to have it. But now this begs the question, like, how do you address the gender gap as far as, women participation in tech is concerned.
I think the only problem that is standing between any society and advancement is information. Just the lack of information can make you can lag behind as far as centuries or millenniums if you don't have the necessary kind of information. So for me, my idea is this: just provide the information. And I think it's the thing that is also standing between the rich and the poor has always been information. People are not where they are because they have the talent, the competence, the skill, although that is very important. But for you to succeed in any field, you need the necessary kind of information. So I think the only thing that can bridge the gap is information. Provide the necessary information and put it where it is required so that people can make informed choices. Because if the choices that are presented to women are limited, then they're going to make limited choices. But if the choices are vast, there's an expanse in terms of what you can do as a woman. And there's this, let me just bring in something, a unique perspective. In psychology, there's a guy called Solomon Asch. Then there's the theory of conformity. So the theory of conformity, this is what happens. Solomon Asch brings in the people that he wants to experiment on. And then he has like 4 lines, which are just similar in terms of length and width. And then the 5th line is different. So it could have been small, it could have been longer, shorter or longer, but the 4 are very similar. So as the people were coming in, Solomon Asch, and then he has people who are part of his experiment, so they're called confederates. So the confederates are the people who are part of his experiment, but people don't know that. So they'd come in. So I'm seated here, imagine you're the experiment, I'm seated here, and then the confederate comes in and you ask them, what do you think about those lines, the 5 lines? And 1, 2, 3, 4, the confederates come in and say those lines are similar. And then now the person who's been experimented on, number 9, comes in and is asked, of course it's me who's seated here, and then you ask me, what do you think about those lines? And because 8 people have come in and said those lines are similar, I'm bound to conform and say those lines are similar, despite the fact that there's overwhelming evidence to suggest that those lines are not similar. 4 of them are similar, but the 5th one is different. And all the time, 8 out of 10 times, people said those lines are similar. Conformity. So that was just to bring about the theory of conformity, that at the end of the day, when people are given information and there's nothing to suggest outside their context, giving them the position and the idea to think outside the box, they're going to conform. So this is what happens, especially even with the girls, because of the information that they're given, that as a woman, this is only what you can do. Go do nursing, go be an engineer, go be a doctor, go be whatever, a lawyer. And then you're not given the opportunity then to think outside the box because the information has not been provided for you. And you conform to society because everybody else who's come before you has told you that this is only what you can do. So then you grow up believing that this is the only thing I can do. I can't think outside the box. So the only way then to bridge the gap is to have the information so that people can make informed decisions and informed choices and come and join the tech space. Because where we are headed, every industry has been automated. Who is going to automate this industry? Anyone who has the expertise, anyone who has the information. But unfortunately, we are seeing that it is gentlemen who are doing this, and we're asking, where are the ladies?
Okay.
Yes.
Big question, where are the ladies? Now, let's talk about how to fix this, because if you have information, on the other hand, you still need to have some sort of policy to accompany this information. Do you think the drawn-out nature of proceedings that have somehow, slowed the pace of this involvement of ladies, or girls and women in tech, could be, as some of, the result of women not taking part in decision making on the table? Who do you think are responsible for this slow start?
Tech, ordinarily or originally, is a boys' club. It is a boys' club. So for any lady to come into the boys' club, first of all, you need to have a seat at the table. Before you can have a seat at the table, you have to prove yourself worthy of being at the table. In fact, you have to prove yourself worthy of being at the door. Somebody has to get you to the door. Unless you know there's a party going on, you're not even going to dress up and show up for the party. So there are very few women who saw that there is a party going on. It's a boys' club, and we want to be part of this club. So the joining, you become a part of the boys' club, and you have a seat at the table. Unfortunately, the women who have a seat at the table are not making enough noise to say, there is a bigger pie here. These gentlemen need our help. these gentlemen need a perspective as women. So, hey, we are here. Why don't you come and join us? Because now, once they create the policies, they create the information that will then attract everybody into the boys' club. Because as we know, tech in itself, it's emanated from Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley, by and large, is a boys' club. So, my view is this: if we have enough women advocating for other women to come and join in, because I think this woman and girl thing can only be forwarded, it can only be championed by women. It's very difficult for a man to say, hey, girls, come, you know, be suspicious. Why are you asking us to come on board? But if it's a lady who says, I understand the benefits, I understand the need for you to be part of this big industry, I understand for you to be part of the future, because tech is a part of the future. But how can you be a part of the future if presently you were not in the train?
Okay.
Yes.
When you look at the accessibility, even as we come to the tail end of this particular discussion, when you look at the accessibility in terms of, let's say, the mobile gadget, internet connectivity, in order to empower, those are some of things that you need to look at. How will you say, in terms of, these internet connectivity, access to mobile phones, even in remote areas, how will you weigh in, according to your assessment, how will you weigh in, even as you drive the agenda of girl, women in tech?
All right. So for me, my vehicle is Girls in Tech. And the intention has been to go to villages, and especially from the western region from where I come, because charity begins at home. So I felt, let me just go there when they have career days, let me try to motivate them, inspire them, and try to at least maybe twist them into joining this space, because it's a beautiful space. Then it begins with empowerment, one person at a time, one step at a time, then they'll come and join the space. Now, when it comes to the mobile phone proliferation, it's there. I mean, even when you go back to the villages, I was quite shocked to realize that they are vast. They are vast when it comes to technology and the phones and whatnot. But it only ends with WhatsApp, Facebook, WhatsApp. Because you see girls or boys in the village, they are also they're also on social media. So that means that they already have the platform to begin, where they can begin this entire conversation. Tech is going to happen on the phones when they have the phones, when they have the computers. So the gadgets, the electronics that they have, the gadgets, the phones, the tablets, the laptops, these gadgets that they have, definitely they can use them to their advantage instead of just using it for Facebook and whatnot.
All right.
Right.
Your parting shot, even as we wind up.
All right. Girls, this is just my call to you. Come join the tech space. The cake is so big for every one of us, for each one of us to consume. You want to be a part of the future. The future is in technology. I implore you to come join us. Girls in Tech, we will be there in schools, primary, high schools, and colleges, just to implore you to come and join the tech industry, because it's a beautiful, beautiful place to be, and there's so much you can do as young women in the tech space.
All right. Nangami Masakha. I'm sure I've got it
He's
right.
got it, yes.
All right. Thank you so much for making time, of course, and giving in your views on this important discussion. It's always a pleasure to have you.
My distinguished honor.